My parents pretended my brother was missing so they could set up a fake charity in his name and profit. So I exposed them publicly and cut them off. Now, a year later, they're trying to reconnect. I was 14 years old when I came home from school and ran to my brother's room. It was his 11th birthday, and I bought him a Lego Star Wars set that he had wanted for years. Our parents are Asian, so they don't care much about celebrations, so I knew it was my job to make sure his were always special. But his room was empty. Bed was made. No backpack. Shoes missing. I walked around the house shouting his name, certain that he was hiding in some dark corner of the house. I emptied out every crevice, behind the window shutter, under the stairs, in the kitchen cupboards, but it was like he turned into John Cena or something, because I couldn't find him anywhere. Well, my parents weren't home either, so I figured that maybe they had broken tradition to celebrate his birthday. But when 5 p.m. hit, they both came home. When I told them Mikey was missing, their faces fell. For the next few days, our lives were filled with missing person flyers, neighborhood searches, and false sightings. I remember eating so little that after a few days, I could barely even stand without passing out. Meanwhile, my parents' faces were being broadcasted onto every media platform. We were getting tens of thousands of dollars in donations from random do-gooders, but the money didn't matter to me, because I would have traded my life for Mikey's in a heartbeat, and I thought my parents felt the same way. But after 3 weeks passed since Mikey's disappearance, I heard my parents talking in the kitchen early in the morning when they thought I was asleep. Don't get me wrong, I love Mikey, but I'm glad we don't have to worry about money anymore. My mom's voice was cheery, like she was relieved. Honey, trust me, I'm with you all the way. If I was given the opportunity to disappear in exchange for some moolah from my parents, I would have grabbed that shut in a heartbeat. I'm sure Mikey's happy for us. I was seeing red. I immediately ran down the stairs. What the F is wrong with you? I yelled so hard my voice cracked. Oh, shut the F up, my mom said, waving her hand at me like she was swatting away a fly. Don't make us out to be the bad guys, son. We're hurting too. I was about to shout back, but then my brain reminded me that Mikey was gone. So the anger was instantly replaced with heartbreaking grief, and I fell to the floor in tears. My dad picked me up and brought me back to bed, and I cried myself back to sleep. I didn't see my parents for a while after that. Just spent my time alternating between my bed, the bathroom, and going to the fridge to eat my parents' leftovers at 2 a.m. And a few days later, I saw my mom had posted on Instagram, except it wasn't a missing poster post or asking for more search party volunteers. Number It was an organization that had been set up in the name of Mikey. Its purpose was to raise awareness for child abduction risk factors and precautionary measures. TBH, at first I thought it was some BS, but in just 2 weeks my parents had both quit their 9-to-5 jobs to dedicate themselves to its growth. It was all they'd talk about, and if I ever tried to bring up Mikey instead of the organization, they'd tweak out. They'd tell me I was dragging the family down, and I had to focus on the future instead of the past. And when I asked for a therapist to talk about it with instead, they told me no, because I had to man up and move on. So that's how I started my own traditions. Every Wednesday, Mikey's favorite day of the week, I would wake up at 5 a.m. and read through our old texts on Skype and watch old videos, because the last thing I wanted was to forget the sound of his voice or how he spoke. Every 27th, the date he disappeared, I would walk around all his favorite spots with the Lego set I never gave him, just in case. Everything felt really lonely. I didn't even want to meet anyone new because it felt wrong meeting people that wouldn't know Mikey. Meanwhile, my parents were practically on cloud 9. I hadn't even seen either of them cry since the memorial service. And 2 years later, on what should have been his 13th birthday, I woke up to a voice message from a number I didn't recognize. It sounded extremely muffled, but in the background I heard it. Mikey's voice saying, Walnut Street. I immediately shot up. My parents were still asleep, so I stole my mom's credit card and got an Uber straight there. It was 2 hours away, and adrenaline was pumping through my body the whole way there. I didn't know how I'd know which house it was. I was just hoping for the best. But then I saw it. My aunt's cabin, one I had been to during many summers as a child. I got out of the Uber and ran up to the window. Inside was my dad cooking ramen, Mikey's favorite. No one else was there, except in the corner I saw a rope coming out of the floor. It looked like it led to a trap door. I stood there and watched as my dad opened the latch, and I saw 2 tiny hands reach out for the bowl of noodles. Hands that looked thinner than I remembered, but with the same birthmark on the right thumb that Mikey had always been self-conscious about. My entire body went cold. I couldn't process what I was seeing. My dad, my own father, was feeding someone hidden under the floor, and those hands, they looked just like Mikey's. I pulled out my phone and started recording, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Through the window, I could see my dad talking to whoever was down there, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. Then suddenly, he stopped and looked toward the window, toward me. I ducked down instantly, heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. Had he seen me? I pressed myself against the side of the cabin, trying to make myself as small as possible. I heard footsteps inside, coming toward the window. I held my breath as my dad's footsteps got closer to the window. My heart was beating so hard I thought it might explode. He pushed the curtain aside and peered out, scanning the yard with narrowed eyes. I stayed completely still, pressed against the wall, praying he wouldn't lean out far enough to see me. After what felt like forever, he finally closed the curtain and walked away. I waited a few more minutes before daring to peek again. My dad was back at the kitchen counter, putting something in a bag. Then he grabbed his keys and headed for the door. I panicked and scrambled around to the back of the cabin, hiding behind a stack of firewood. I heard the front door open and close, followed by the sound of our family car starting up and driving away. This was my chance. I ran back to the front, trying the door handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. I checked under the welcome mat and around the potted plants. Nothing. Then I remembered the spare key my aunt used to keep in the fake rock by the garden gnome. I searched frantically and almost cried with relief when I found it. Still there after all these years. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the lock. When I finally pushed the door open, the cabin was silent except for the ticking of an old clock on the wall. I crept toward the trap door, which was now closed again. "Mikey?" I whispered, kneeling beside it. "Mikey, are you down there?" No response. I found the latch and pulled it open. The hinges creaked loudly in the quiet cabin. A ladder led down into darkness. I turned on my phone's flashlight and pointed it down. "Mikey, it's me. It's Ryan." There was movement in the corner, and then I saw him, my little brother, huddled against the wall on a small cot. He looked so different, skinnier, paler, his hair longer and unkempt, but it was definitely him. His eyes squinted against my light. "Ryan?" His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "Is that really you?" I climbed down the ladder so fast I almost fell. When I reached the bottom, I just stood there, staring at him. He looked like a ghost of the kid I remembered. "I've been looking for you for 2 years," I said, my voice breaking. "Everyone thought you were dead." Mikey shook his head slowly. "Dad said I had to stay here, for the family. He said we needed money and this was the only way." He looked down at his hands. "He said if I tried to leave or tell anyone, they'd take you away too." I felt sick. The room was small, maybe 8 by 8 feet, with just the cot, a bucket in the corner, and some books and toys scattered around. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, currently turned off. "Has he kept you here the whole time?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Mikey nodded. "I haven't been outside since my birthday. Dad brings me food and stuff. Mom comes sometimes too." Mom, so she knew too. Of course she did. They both knew exactly where Mikey was this whole time while I was falling apart missing him. "We need to get out of here," I said, reaching for his hand. "Dad could be back any minute." Mikey hesitated. "Where will we go?" Good question. I hadn't thought that far ahead. "Somewhere safe, away from them. Come on." I helped him up the ladder. His legs were shaky, not from weakness, but from being confined in such a small space for so long. Dad had apparently been making him exercise regularly. Push-ups, sit-ups, walking in circles, to prevent muscle atrophy. He said it would look suspicious if I couldn't walk when they eventually found me, Mikey explained as we reached the main floor. When we got to the main floor, he squinted against the daylight coming through the windows. "It's so bright," he whispered, shielding his eyes. I grabbed a baseball cap hanging by the door and put it on his head to shade his eyes. Then I found a backpack and started shoving food from the kitchen into it. Granola bars, apples, bottles of water. Mikey just stood there, looking lost in clothes that were way too big for him. "We need to hurry," I said, zipping up the backpack. "Dad just went to get groceries or something. He could be back soon." We headed for the door, but Mikey stopped suddenly. "Wait, what if he's right? What if they take you away from me if people find out?" "That's not going to happen," I promised, though I had no idea if that was true. They're the ones who did something wrong, not us. Finally, he nodded and took my hand. We left the cabin and started walking quickly down the road. I had no idea where we were going, but anywhere was better than that cabin. "The woods," Mikey said suddenly, pointing to a trail that led into the forest. "Dad always comes back on the main road. If we go through there, he won't see us." Smart kid. We veered off the road and into the trees. The trail was overgrown and hard to follow in places, but Mikey seemed to know where he was going. "Dad took me walking here sometimes," he explained. "At night, when no one would see us. He said I needed to stay somewhat acclimated to the outdoors for when they found me." That explained why he was able to navigate the woods so well, despite being confined for 2 years. We walked for what felt like hours. Mikey kept having to stop and rest, his body still adjusting to extended movement. The sun was starting to set, and I was getting worried. We had no flashlight except my phone, which was already down to 20% battery. "I think we're lost," Mikey finally admitted, as darkness began to fall. "I don't recognize this part." Just then, we heard a car engine in the distance. We both froze, listening. It was getting closer. "Hide," I whispered, pulling Mikey behind a fallen tree. We crouched down, hardly daring to breathe. The car stopped somewhere nearby. A door slammed, and then we heard it. Our dad's voice, calling Mikey's name. He sounded worried, almost frantic, but I knew better now. This wasn't the concern of a loving father. This was the panic of someone who'd just discovered their meal ticket was gone. "He knows we left," Mikey whispered, his whole body trembling. "He's going to find us." I put my arm around him. "No, he won't. We just need to stay quiet." We huddled there as the sky grew darker. Dad's voice got closer, then farther away, then closer again. He was searching the woods, and from the sound of it, he was getting frustrated. At one point, he passed so close to our hiding spot that we could see the beam of his flashlight through the trees. "Mikey, I know you're out here," he shouted. "You're making a big mistake. I did all this for you, for our family." Mikey started to shake harder. I held him tighter, silently praying our dad would give up and leave. Eventually, the woods went quiet. We waited another 20 minutes before I dared to move. "I think he's gone," I whispered. "But we can't stay here. It's too cold, and he might come back with help." "Where can we go?" Mikey asked. He looked exhausted and scared. I had no good answer. We were in the middle of nowhere, nowhere, with no transportation and no real plan. My phone was almost dead, and I didn't even know if we had cell service out here. Let's try to find the road, I decided. Maybe we can flag down a car or something. We started walking again, using the last of my phone battery for light. The woods seemed to go on forever, and every sound made us jump. An owl hooted nearby, and Mikey grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. Sorry, he whispered. I'm not used to outside sounds anymore. That broke my heart all over again. What kind of parents would do this to their own kid? After what seemed like hours of stumbling around in the dark, we finally saw lights through the trees. The road. We hurried toward it, relief flooding through me. But as we got closer, I realized with horror that we'd gone in a circle. Those weren't street lights. It was the cabin, and our dad's car was parked outside. No, I muttered. No, no, no. Mikey started to cry silently beside me. I pulled him back into the cover of the trees. It's okay, I whispered, though it definitely wasn't. We'll go the other way. But before we could move, headlights appeared on the road. Another car was approaching the cabin. We watched as it parked next to Dad's, and then my mom got out. She's here too now, Mikey whispered, his voice hollow. We watched from the trees as our parents met on the porch. Even from this distance, I could see how agitated they both were. Dad was gesturing wildly, and Mom kept putting her hands to her face. We need to hear what they're saying, I decided. Maybe they'll mention where they think we went. We crept closer, staying low and hidden in the underbrush. As we got within earshot, their voices became clearer. How could you let this happen? Mom was saying. Do you have any idea what this will do to the organization? To us? I didn't let anything happen, Dad shot back. I was gone for 20 minutes, tops. Someone must have helped him. Well, we need to find him before anyone else does. Have you checked the woods? Of course I checked the woods. I've been out there for hours. They continued arguing, neither of them expressing any concern for Mikey's well-being. It was all about the money, the organization, their reputation. I felt sick listening to them. We should go while they're distracted, I whispered to Mikey. He nodded, but as we started to back away, he stepped on a twig. The snap seemed deafening in the quiet night. Both our parents stopped talking instantly. What was that? Mom asked. Probably just an animal, Dad replied, but he was already moving toward the edge of the porch, peering into the darkness. We froze, hardly daring to breathe. Dad took a flashlight from his pocket and shined it in our direction. The beam passed right over us, then came back. For a heart-stopping moment, I thought he'd seen us, but then he turned away. Nothing there, he said. Look, we need to call the police. Are you insane? Mom hissed. And tell them what? That our supposedly kidnapped son has gone missing again? We'll say he was returned to us secretly by the kidnapper, but he's traumatized and ran away. People will believe that. They went inside, still arguing. I tugged on Mikey's arm, and we retreated deeper into the woods. They're going to call the police, Mikey said, panic in his voice. They'll find us and take me back there. No, they won't, I insisted, because we're going to find help first. Real help. We walked all night, following the road from a safe distance within the tree line. Mikey was exhausted, stumbling every few steps. I ended up carrying him on my back for the last mile or so. As dawn broke, we finally reached what looked like a small town. There was a gas station with its lights on, and a few cars in the parking lot. We made it, I told Mikey, setting him down gently. We just need to find someone who can help us. But as we approached the gas station, a police car pulled into the lot. My heart sank. Had our parents already reported Mikey missing again? The officer got out and went inside, not even glancing in our direction. What do we do? Mikey whispered. I thought quickly. We need to find someone who knows us, someone who won't just call Mom and Dad right away. And then I saw it. A familiar car pulling up to the gas pump. It was Mr. Chen, my history teacher. He lived somewhere out this way. I remembered him mentioning it once. What were the odds? Stay here, I told Mikey, positioning him behind a dumpster. I'll be right back. I approached Mr. Chen cautiously as he was pumping gas. He looked surprised to see me. Ryan, what are you doing out here so early? Mr. Chen, I need your help, I said, my voice shaking. It's about my brother. His expression changed immediately. Everyone at school knew about Mikey's disappearance. Your brother? What about him? He's alive. My parents, they've been hiding him. For the money, for the donations. The words tumbled out in a rush. He's here with me now. We escaped last night. Mr. Chen stared at me for a long moment. I could see he wasn't sure whether to believe me or not. Ryan, these are very serious accusations. Your parents have been through a terrible tragedy. It's not a tragedy. It's a lie, I interrupted. Please, just come see for yourself. Mikey's right over there. I pointed toward the dumpster where Mikey was hiding. Mr. Chen hesitated, then nodded and followed me. When Mikey stepped out, Mr. Chen's face went pale. Oh my God, he whispered. It really is him. Mikey looked up at Mr. Chen nervously. Hi, he said in a small voice. Mr. Chen knelt down to Mikey's level. Are you okay? Has anyone hurt you? Mikey shook his head. They just kept me in a room, under the floor, so people would give them money. Mr. Chen looked like he might be sick. He stood up and put a hand on my shoulder. We need to get you both somewhere safe, and then we need to call the authorities. No police, I said quickly. My parents said they were going to tell them Mikey was returned and ran away. They'll just give him back. Mr. Chen thought for a moment. My sister is a lawyer in the next county over. Let's go to her first. She'll know what to do. He finished pumping gas, then led us to his car. As we were getting in, I noticed another car pulling into the gas station. Our dad's car. My blood ran cold. That's him, I whispered to Mr. Chen. That's our dad. Mr. Chen didn't hesitate. Get down, he ordered, and we both ducked below the windows. He started the car and pulled out of the gas station as casually as possible. In the side mirror, I could see my dad getting out of his car, looking around suspiciously. We drove for about 30 minutes before Mr. Chen deemed it safe for us to sit up again. Mikey had fallen asleep, his head resting against my shoulder. He looked so small and vulnerable. Ryan, Mr. Chen said quietly, I need you to tell me everything, from the beginning. So I did. I told him about finding the cabin, seeing Mikey in the hidden room, our escape through the woods, and everything our parents had said. I showed him the video I'd taken on my phone, which thankfully hadn't died completely. Mr. Chen listened without interrupting, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I always thought there was something off about the whole situation, he finally said. Your parents, they seemed to adapt too quickly, started that organization too soon, but I never imagined they'd do something like this. We arrived at his sister's house around 8 a.m. She was already leaving for work when we pulled in, briefcase in hand. Her name was Elaine, and she looked a lot like Mr. Chen, just shorter and with glasses. She was confused at first, but when Mr. Chen explained who we were, her professional demeanor took over. She invited us inside and listened to our story again, taking notes this time. When I showed her the video, she immediately called someone on her phone and spoke in rapid legal terms I didn't understand. After hanging up, she turned to us. I have a colleague who specializes in family law and child protection, she explained. She's going to help us navigate this properly. In the meantime, you'll both stay here where it's safe. What about our parents? I asked. They're probably looking everywhere for us. Let them look, Elaine said firmly. They won't find you here, and once we have everything documented properly, they're going to have a lot more to worry about than finding you. She showed us to a guest room with 2 beds. Mikey was still half asleep, so I helped him lie down. He was out again almost instantly. I sat on the other bed, suddenly feeling the exhaustion of the past 24 hours hit me all at once. Get some rest, Elaine told me. You're safe now, both of you, but I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my parents' faces, heard their cold calculations about money and donations. How could they have done this? To their own son, to both of us. Around noon, I was startled awake by voices downstairs. I hadn't even realized I'd fallen asleep. Mikey was still out cold in the other bed. I crept to the door and listened. It sounded like Elaine was arguing with someone. I don't care what they're saying, she was saying firmly. I've seen the evidence with my own eyes. These children are not going back to that home. I opened the door a crack and peered down the stairs. Elaine was standing in the entryway, blocking the door, and on the other side were my parents. My heart nearly stopped. How had they found us? They're our children, my mom was saying, her voice doing that fake concerned thing she'd perfected for the TV interviews. Ryan has been struggling with his brother's disappearance. He's not thinking clearly. Then how do you explain the video? Elaine demanded. Or the fact that your supposedly kidnapped son is upstairs right now, telling the same story as Ryan. What video? My dad asked, his voice suddenly sharp. I ducked back into the room, my heart pounding. They didn't know I'd recorded them. That was our ace in the hole. I shook Mikey awake gently. Mikey, Mom and Dad are here, I whispered. We need to be ready to leave if things go bad. His eyes flew open, filled with fear. They found us? It's okay. Mr. Chen's sister is keeping them out, but just in case, let's get our shoes on and be ready. We sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the argument downstairs. It was getting heated. My dad was demanding to see us, and Elaine was refusing. Then I heard another voice. Mr. Chen had returned. I've contacted the authorities, he was saying. They're on their way now. I suggest you both leave before they get here. This is ridiculous, my mom snapped. You have no right to keep our children from us. Ryan is clearly manipulating all of you with some elaborate story. It's not a story, I said loudly, stepping out onto the landing. Everyone looked up at me. And I have proof. My parents' faces changed instantly. The fake concern dropped away, replaced by something cold and calculating. Ryan, honey, my mom said, her voice syrupy sweet. We've been so worried about you. Please come down so we can talk about this. No, I replied firmly. I heard you both that morning in the kitchen. I saw Mikey in that room under the floor. I recorded it all on my phone. My dad's face went pale. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice wavered. Am I? I pulled out my phone and held it up. Want me to play it for everyone right now? My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. Then my dad took a step forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. Son, you don't understand. Everything we did was for this family, for your future, for Mikey's future. You kept him in a hole in the ground for 2 years, I shouted, my voice breaking. How was that for his future? He was safe, my mom insisted. He had books, toys, everything he needed, and the money from the organization was going to set you both up for life. College funds, travel, opportunities we never had. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were actually trying to justify what they'd done. You're sick, I said quietly. Both of you. Mikey appeared beside me then, his small hand finding mine. My parents' eyes locked onto him, and for a moment, no one spoke. Mikey, my mom finally said, her voice gentle now. Sweetie, you know we love you. Everything we did was out of love. Mikey squeezed my hand tighter. No, he said, his voice stronger than I'd heard it since finding him. You did it for money. You told me so. My mom's face went all weird when Mikey said that, like she couldn't decide if she should keep playing nice or just drop the act. Dad was the first to crack though. Get down here right now, he shouted, his face turning this scary shade of red I'd never seen before. Both of you, we're going home and sorting this out as a family. Elaine stepped between them and the stairs. That's not happening. You need to leave now. These are our children, Mom screamed, trying to push past Elaine. Mr. Chen moved to block her too. I pulled Mikey back into the bedroom and shut the door, my heart racing like crazy. crazy. Through the door, I could hear more shouting, something breaking, and then Mr. Chen yelling that he was calling the police. "What do we do?" Mikey whispered, his eyes wide with fear. I looked around the room frantically. There was a window, but we were on the second floor. No way we could jump without getting hurt. I pushed the dresser against the door, just as someone started pounding on it. "Ryan, open this door right now!" It was Dad, and he sounded furious. "Go away!" I shouted back. "Just leave us alone!" The pounding got louder. The dresser started to move as he threw his weight against the door. I was freaking out, trying to think of what to do next, when we heard sirens in the distance. The pounding stopped immediately. I heard rapid footsteps going down the stairs, followed by the front door slamming. Through the window, I watched our parents' car speed away just as a police cruiser turned onto the street. We stayed in that room for hours after that. The police took statements from Mr. Chen and Elaine. Someone brought us food and water. Eventually, this lady in a pantsuit came up to talk to us. She introduced herself as a social worker named Vanessa. She had this super gentle voice and kept assuring us we weren't in trouble. "We need to document everything," she explained, setting up a small camera. "Can you tell me what happened, in your own words?" So we did. Mikey went first, describing the tiny room under the floor, how Dad would bring him food and books, but never let him out except at night sometimes, how Mom visited less often, but always told him they were doing this for the greater good. He talked about using the bathroom in a bucket and not seeing sunlight for months at a time. The whole time he was talking, I just sat there feeling sick. When it was my turn, I showed them the video on my phone and told them everything, from hearing my parents in the kitchen that morning 2 years ago to finding Mikey at the cabin. Vanessa took notes the whole time, occasionally asking questions to clarify things. "What's going to happen to our parents?" I finally asked. Vanessa exchanged a look with the police officer standing by the door. "They'll be arrested when they're found," she said carefully. "What they did was very serious." "And what about us?" Mikey asked in a small voice. "Where will we go? For now, you'll stay in emergency foster care while we locate any extended family who might be able to take you in. Do you have grandparents, aunts, or uncles?" I thought about it. Our mom's parents are in Korea. Dad's mom died a few years ago, and his dad is in a nursing home with dementia. There's our Aunt Jenny, but she moved to Florida. We'll try to contact her, Vanessa promised. That night, we stayed with this older couple named the Wilsons. They were emergency foster parents who took in kids on short notice. They gave us clean clothes, hot food, and separate bedrooms. I couldn't sleep though. I kept checking on Mikey every hour, terrified he'd disappear again. Around 3 a.m., I heard him crying. I went to his room and found him sitting up in bed, hugging his knees. "I had a bad dream," he whispered when he saw me. "I was back in that room and couldn't get out. I sat on the edge of his bed. You're never going back there, I promise." "But what if Mom and Dad come back for me?" "They won't," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "And even if they tried, I wouldn't let them take you." He wiped his eyes. "Can you stay here, just for tonight?" So I did. I slept on the floor next to his bed, and somehow that was the best sleep I'd had in 2 years. The next morning, we found out our parents had been arrested trying to cross the state line. The news was all over TV. Missing boy found alive. Parents arrested in shocking scheme. There were reporters outside the Wilsons' house, but the police kept them away. Aunt Jenny called from Florida. She was horrified when she heard what happened and immediately said she'd take us in. She was flying up the next day. I remembered her as being pretty cool. She was Dad's younger sister who always brought us weird souvenirs from her travels and let us stay up late watching movies when she visited. The hardest part was when the police took us back to our house to get some of our things. It was weird seeing our home like this, with police officers going through everything, taking photos, bagging up evidence. My room was exactly how I'd left it, but Mikey's had been turned into this shrine with his photos everywhere and candles and stuff. For show, obviously. It made me so angry I couldn't even look at it. I helped Mikey pack some clothes and his favorite books. In my room, I grabbed my laptop, some clothes, and the Lego Star Wars set I'd bought for Mikey's birthday 2 years ago. It was still wrapped, sitting on my shelf where I'd left it after he disappeared. "Is that for me?" Mikey asked when he saw it. "Yeah," I said, handing it to him. "Happy super belated birthday." He tore open the wrapping paper right there, his face lighting up when he saw what it was. For a second, he looked like the old Mikey again, excited about something normal. It made my chest hurt. Aunt Jenny arrived the next day. She hugged us both for like 5 straight minutes, crying and saying how sorry she was. She'd already arranged to transfer her job to a branch office near her home so she could take care of us properly. "I had no idea," she kept saying. "I should have known something wasn't right. The way they started that organization so quickly, I just thought they were channeling their grief." "It's not your fault," I told her. "They fooled everyone." We flew to Florida with her 2 days later. Her apartment wasn't huge, but she'd cleared out her home office to make a bedroom for Mikey and converted her dining room into a space for me. It wasn't perfect, but it was safe. The first few weeks were rough. Mikey had nightmares almost every night. He was jumpy around strangers and hated small spaces. I wasn't much better. I had trouble sleeping and kept checking on him constantly. Aunt Jenny got us both into therapy right away, which helped some. Our parents' trial was all over the news. They'd been charged with kidnapping, child abuse, fraud, and a bunch of other things I didn't fully understand. Their lawyers tried to argue they had mental breakdowns after Mikey's kidnapping and weren't responsible for their actions. Nobody bought it, especially after the prosecution played my video in court. I didn't have to testify in person. person, thank God. They used my recorded statement instead. Mikey did have to appear briefly, but they set it up so he didn't have to see our parents. Aunt Jenny went with him and said he was incredibly brave. The trial lasted 3 weeks. In the end, both our parents were found guilty on all counts. Dad got 25 years, Mom got 22. The judge called what they did one of the most calculated and heartless schemes he'd ever seen in his courtroom. I thought I'd feel better after the sentencing, but I just felt empty. These were our parents, the people who were supposed to love and protect us. How could they have done this? Aunt Jenny must have sensed how I was feeling because she took us out for ice cream after we heard the news. We sat at this little beachside shop, watching the waves while eating these massive sundaes. You know, she said carefully, what they did doesn't reflect on you two at all. You're both incredible kids who deserve so much better than what they gave you. Mikey looked up from his ice cream. Do you think they ever really loved us? Aunt Jenny sighed. I think they loved you in their own broken way, but love isn't supposed to hurt people. Real love protects and nurtures. What they did wasn't love. I keep thinking about all the other kids who go missing, I said quietly. The ones who never come home. And our parents used that pain to make money. They made people think Mikey was one of those kids. That's why the judge was so hard on them, Aunt Jenny explained. They didn't just hurt you two. They hurt all those families who donated thinking they were helping a cause. They exploited everyone's empathy. 6 months after moving to Florida, things started feeling more normal. Mikey was doing better in therapy. He'd even made a few friends at his new school. I joined the photography club and started hanging out with this group of kids who were into the same video games as me. We still had bad days. Mikey still had nightmares sometimes. I still got angry thinking about those 2 years we lost, but we were moving forward. On Mikey's 14th birthday, his first real birthday celebration in 3 years, we had a small party at the beach. Just Aunt Jenny, me, and a couple of Mikey's new friends. We had a cake shaped like the Millennium Falcon, his obsession with Star Wars hadn't changed, and went swimming until sunset. As we were packing up to leave, Mikey came and sat next to me on the sand. Thanks for finding me, he said simply. I never stopped looking, I told him. Not really, I know. He dug his toes into the sand. I used to imagine you bursting in to rescue me like Luke Skywalker or something, and then you actually did. I laughed. I don't think I was that heroic. You were to me. He looked out at the ocean. Do you think we'll be okay? Like, eventually? I thought about everything we'd been through and everything still ahead of us. The ongoing therapy, the legal stuff with our parents' assets, the adjustments to our new life. It wasn't going to be easy. Yeah, I said finally. I think we will be. Aunt Jenny called us to help carry stuff to the car. As we walked across the beach, Mikey suddenly raced ahead, running through the shallow waves with his arms spread wide, laughing as the water splashed around him. Just a normal kid enjoying his birthday. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like maybe things really would be okay.